This special presentation was produced in high definition by WEDU, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Sarasota.
Kevin.
Kevin.
Trusted financial advice for life. You can learn more at RaymondJames.com.
SUNCOAST Business Forum brought to you by the financial services firm of Raymond James, offering personalized wealth management advice and banking and capital markets expertise, all with a commitment to putting clients' financial well-being first. More information is available at RaymondJames.com.
Entrepreneurship in America is on the rise. That's where most of the new jobs are created. There are a lot of hurdles to overcome when starting a new business. That's why thousands of entrepreneurs have discovered there are ways to be their own boss without starting from scratch by franchising. More than 750,000 businesses are franchised with more than 8 million employees and $700 billion in revenues. They're growing faster than the overall U.S. economy. The variety of franchise businesses keeps changing. One of the oldest franchises in America is quick-serve restaurant company International Dairy Queen, having started nearly 80 years ago. Then there are fast-growing franchises like College Hunks Hauling Junk and Moving, with more than 100 locations in about 12 years. In a few moments, you'll meet College Hunks co-founder and president Nick Friedman and former International Dairy Queen president and CEO John Gainor, who'll share their insights about building dynamic franchise businesses. We interviewed them at the Sykes Hall of Fame Business Speaker Series at the University of Tampa's Sykes College of Business. First, we share this brief video that highlights the careers of John Gainor and Nick Friedman.
I'm the Dairy Queen, won't you come with me along the milkshake way? I've got lots of good surprises, fresh and yummy for you every day. There are malts and shakes and sundaes too, whenever you stop. And of course your very, very favorite, the cone with the curl on top.
You don't have to just dream about Dairy Queen. Your favorite Dairy Queen treat is a refreshing reality at your nearest Dairy Queen store.
Dairy Queen invented soft-serve ice cream. J.P. McCullough invented soft-serve ice cream in 1939. And in 1940, the very first Dairy Queen opened in Joliet, Illinois. Actually, that restaurant right now is an Illinois landmark. But after the war, as soldiers were returning, they were looking for jobs and looking for opportunities. And Dairy Queen was franchising restaurants at the time. So think about all these people coming back from the war, looking for a business opportunity, and Dairy Queen was perfect because everyone loves ice cream.
When it opened that first store in the 1940s, Dairy Queen was a pioneer of restaurant franchising. Using that business model, it has grown to more than 7,000 restaurants in nearly 30 countries, competing with some of the largest quick-serve restaurants in the world.
Well, you know, being a 77-year-old brand is really interesting. There are some challenges, but there's a lot of great opportunities. And when you think about our franchisee base, in the U.S., the average franchisee owns less than 3 Dairy Queens. So they tend to be more owner-operators. They're involved in the restaurant, they're involved in their community. So there's a lot of hands-on management. And, you know, people have great memories of Dairy Queen. It's that first ice cream cone, going to Dairy Queen after a Little League game. There's been a lot of people meet their spouses at Dairy Queen over the years. So people have really fond memories. And believe it or not, that heritage is one of the advantages that we have. But I will tell you, the quality of our products, to me, that is the strategic advantage, and we're not willing to compromise on that.
The combination of quality and heritage are among the strengths that convinced legendary investor Warren Buffett, CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, to buy Dairy Queen 20 years ago.
Being owned by Berkshire International Dairy Queen, we have no debt whatsoever. We also have ready access to capital through Berkshire. But the beauty of it is Warren allows each of his managers to run their brand. And he really only gives us very limited direction. And part of it is protect the Berkshire brand and protect, in my case, the Dairy Queen brand.
Let's take a moment and talk about your formative years, where you grew up. Tell us about your family and growing up.
Sure. Well, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and I would tell you I grew up in a blue-collar family. And I think the beauty of it, when I look at my job today at Dairy Queen, I would say for the most part we're a blue-collar brand. And, you know, growing up, I remember going to Dairy Queen. My local Dairy Queen is still there today, but my parents also believed that, you know, to develop a work ethic, and, you know, there were things that any teenager wanted to buy, including a car, and, you know, I was encouraged to go get a job. And my first job was actually working at an apartment complex, and I learned to be a maintenance man.
After college at Ohio University, John Gainor went to work in sales.
And I had an opportunity to go back to Pennsylvania and go to work for the transportation company that my father and grandfather were still there. And I've got to tell you, it's a humbling experience because in sales, you definitely learn to be rejected. But I had wanted to get into traffic management at the time. So I then went back to Pennsylvania, and I did that. But ironically, I got recruited away from that company by one of my former customers, and I ended up going to work for Warner Lambert, which was a pharmaceutical and consumer products company. So I really got a great experience in managing two regions of the country, ensuring that product that came out of the manufacturing locations would move through our supply chain network and end up in stores like Walmart, Target, or pharmaceutical chains. And to be honest, Jeff, supply chain back in the 80s is not what it is today. Today it is even more critical when you look at companies like Amazon, and they are basically managing a very large supply chain.
Although supply chain or logistics isn't sexy, nothing runs without it. And John Gainor excelled at supply chain management. In 1991, he left Warner Lambert for Burger King's supply chain company, Distron, and an opportunity he couldn't pass up.
And in June of 1992, we actually purchased the distribution company of Burger King. So I had the opportunity to invest in the business, and that was really part of the allure of making the move away from Warner Lambert.
The new company, ProSource, grew from $800 million to $4 billion a year in sales within 4 years, went public, and supplied almost every fast food quick-serve restaurant. In 1998, ProSource was acquired by an even bigger supply chain management company, Ameriserve, which, unfortunately, filed for bankruptcy less than 2 years later.
So now you have one of the largest food service distributors that provides everything to the restaurants, to major chains, that is now going through a financial crisis. I was in the middle of it because I was running all of the procurement, redistribution, and resupply. My job was to provide the right guidance to that team. And they were thrown into a very difficult situation. And the thing that I told them, the most important thing, is maintain your integrity. And if you're in a situation and you can't take care of your customer, tell them. Don't give them a story and try to make it sound like it's going to be okay. Tell people the facts.
After the Ameriserve bankruptcy was resolved, John Gainor and his partners formed a new company in Miami called Supply Solutions.
And we provided supply chain solutions to chain restaurants. We also ran a logistics brokerage business where we would arrange transportation of product from vendors into our chains.
In 2003, International Dairy Queen contracted with John Gainor and Supply Solutions to help with issues between the company and its franchisees. Dairy Queen CEO Chuck Moody put on a full-court press and convinced John to join the company and help lead the rollout of its new initiative, Grill and Chill.
And when you think of grill, it says hot food. When you think of chill, you think of frozen treats, beverages. So I thought it was pretty clever. So it was at that point in time we took Brazier, which was a brand from the 50s, and we really elevated our food game. So I think it was then that we really began to become more of a competitor of McDonald's and Burger King, Wendy's, and others.
Dairy Queen franchisees are very independent. In fact, some of them joined the company 50, 60 or more years ago, and the company has evolved over that period of time. So I imagine it's got to be a great challenge to work with franchisees who have all kinds of different agreements with the parent company, with Dairy Queen.
Yeah, absolutely. We have agreements that go back 75, 77 years. Some are written on a plain piece of paper. Some are 1 or 2 pages. And you can imagine all the changes that have occurred over the years. You know, I like to say within our organization, no matter what we're working on, that we have to sell, not tell. If we were running company restaurants, we might decide on an initiative and we would just go out and do it. But in our company, we need to work with our franchisees, convince them, and normally we're most successful when they then begin to tell other franchisees that whatever it is, be it reinvestment, new products, or platforms, that it works.
You refer to Dairy Queen's menu as fan food, not fast food. Explain that and what the overall marketing strategy is.
Dairy Queen doesn't have customers, we have fans. That people root for Dairy Queen no different than they root for the Lightning or the Rays. That they really become caught up and fanatical. And even though we're not as convenient as a McDonald's or a Starbucks on every corner, people might drive a little bit further to get to a Dairy Queen. And part of it just goes back to that heritage. When you think of our brand creates smiles. So, you know, our mission statement is to create positive memories for all who touch DQ. You know, we will never be the largest chain, but we can be the favorite quick serve restaurant.
Size isn't all that matters in the quick serve restaurant business. Quality and culture are vital to attracting customers or fans, as well as franchisee business partners. It's worked for Dairy Queen for more than 75 years, and it's working for a younger, unconventional franchise business headquartered in Tampa Bay. College Hunks hauling junk and moving.
Time to see what Hunks can do to haul my junk and donate to. No stress, no worry, no junk from me, I'm free. Let it go, let it go. College Hunks are the nicest guys. Let it go, let it go. I'm waving the junk goodbye. Here I stand while the children play. College Hunks hauling junk. Let tomorrow's leaders haul your junk today.
In 2005, two friends, Nick Friedman and Omar Solomon, launched a junk hauling business in Washington, D.C. Within a dozen years, they built it into a $50 million revenue franchise business with more than 100 locations and growing.
You know, we didn't become the next Facebook or the next Snapchat. We took a very traditional business model, trucks and labor, put a creative brand to it, a great company culture and great service, and that's allowed us to grow to this level of success. And so I think it's something that people can relate to and wrap their head around, because not everybody's going to be the next Mark Zuckerberg or the next Bill Gates.
College Hunks didn't invent junk hauling. It took an age-old business and reimagined it.
It's been done the same way for hundreds of years, and I think any industry that has been done the same way, that has a lot of competition but is still highly fragmented, means there's a lot of opportunity. And I think the industry that we're in, now we're both in the junk removal as well as the local moving space, I think it's ripe with opportunity, and because it's riddled with mediocrity, quite frankly. And so, you know, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. And what we've always tried to do is figure out how can we be different. I mean, with a name like College Hunks, that's one way to stand out. Our colors and our trucks are orange and green. It makes people, you know, take a second look as it's driving by. Or or remember it and talk about it at the dinner table. But we also have to back that up with the service experience, because it's one thing to look different, but it's another thing once the customer actually gets to experience your product or service to have it be different. So that's something that we really emphasize with all of our employees, all of our franchise owners, is the client experience, and that's really been one of the keys for us to now, as you mentioned, be over 100 franchises around the country, tens of millions of dollars in annual revenue, and I don't think we've even scratched the surface, quite frankly, as to what this business can become.
Who are your clients, and what are the circumstances that make people call you for your service?
Probably our core customer, which is actually the core customer of most service businesses, is the female household decision maker, over 40, married with kids, disposable income, and doesn't have a lot of time on her hands to be dealing with household issues, whether it's could be the landscaper, could be the painter, but in our case it's the mover or the junk hauler. But we do a lot of work at businesses as well. We do a lot of work with real estate agents and property managers, because obviously when people are moving, that's when they need a mover or a junk hauler, or both. And a lot of assisted living facilities as well. When people are downsizing, they've lived in a house for 30, 40 years, now they're moving to an assisted living facility, so they literally have a lifetime's worth of stuff that they need to have sorted, donated, disposed of, or recycled, and moved.
Now, you and your partner Omar were friends in high school. You guys didn't really sit around and talk about starting a business where you're going to haul junk, did you?
No, I can't say that we were sitting around thinking, I want to be a trash man when I grow up. I don't think any kid does. But I like to describe us as we were partners in crime in high school. We were, getting in trouble. We never really fit in. We actually met in detention, believe it or not. And it was actually the summer before our senior year of college that this business kind of hit us like a lightning bolt, and we said, okay, there's an opportunity here. We could actually do something with this. And I was always brought up to kind of, work hard, get good grades, get a good job when you graduate from college. So all I could think about is I need a job when I graduate next year. And so I got an internship that summer at the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C. I thought it was going to look great on my resume, but it was really unfulfilling for me. But I had never been taught any other options. And Omar, my buddy from high school, his mom had this beat-up cargo van from her furniture store, and she said, you know what, Omar, you're not going to be sitting around the pool all summer. Take the cargo van and do something productive with it. So he called me up and said, hey, I've got this beat-up cargo van. Let's haul junk from people's houses and charge a fee for it. We could make some extra money, and it sounded like a refreshing way for me to get out behind my cubicle and actually make some money, because my internship happened to be unpaid even that summer. So we were sitting around the living room table, and we were joking about what could we call ourselves, and we said, well, how about college hunks hauling junk? We obviously weren't that modest at the time, but then we kind of laughed about it, and we're like, well, it's kind of got a catchy ring to it. It might be a good way to make the phone ring. So we just put it on computer printout flyers, stuck it in people's mailboxes around the neighborhood, and people started calling and said, hey, is this the college hunks? And at first we were like, oh yeah, this is them. Yeah, what can we do for you? And went back to school our senior year of college. And Omar ended up writing a business plan and putting it into an entrepreneurship competition, which won first prize. And that gave us a little more confidence in the idea. We graduated, got corporate jobs briefly, and then said, you know what, let's take this business plan off the shelf, make it a reality. And so that's what we've been doing now for over a decade.
How did you decide that franchising was the way to go, and how do you find working with these new business partners who are providing their capital instead of you providing the capital to grow?
Sure. So when we first started, our vision was to be a national brand. That's what we pictured in our minds. We didn't know how to do it, but we knew that's what we could envision this business becoming. And as I mentioned also, we were doing all the work ourselves, hauling the junk, answering the phone, driving the trucks, writing down the appointments. So we started to actually burn out a little bit and thought, well, this was exciting at first, but now there's only so much junk and stuff that two individuals can move in a single day. And so we started down that path where we were documenting everything we would do. How do we drive the truck? How do we answer the phone? How do we wear the uniform? How do we load the truck? How do we greet the clients? All of those things we started documenting, which allowed us to hire our first employees and eventually get a second truck, third truck, and eventually a second and third location. So the franchising expansion model, we didn't have a lot of capital. We didn't have a lot of people that we could go and put in all these other cities or invest into other cities. So the franchising model allowed us to find individuals who wanted to go into business, like we like to say, for themselves but not by themselves, because they can become part of a franchise network where they benefit from that trial and error that we've developed over the years, and they can follow the system and apply their execution to our processes and systems so that they can be successful, and we can all share in that success together.
College Hunks' business success relies on more than a great franchise model. Although it doesn't have the history or heritage of Dairy Queen, like Dairy Queen, it has a corporate culture that goes above and beyond.
We consider ourselves to be a purpose-driven, values-based, socially responsible organization. And I don't think you'll find very many moving or junk removal companies that talk about that first and foremost on day one of orientation, on day one of franchise training. And we say our purpose is to move the world, and that doesn't mean moving people's stuff literally. It means moving people emotionally by making a positive impact in their lives. And for us, it just feels like we're living our values and we're living our purpose, which makes getting up out of bed every day a lot easier when you're not just thinking about, oh, how can I build the revenue? How can I make more profits? It makes you feel a sense of satisfaction where you can move from being a successful business to being a significant business, a significant entity in the communities that you service.
Nick Friedman and John Gainor, two talented business leaders who've reimagined companies as well as industries and created new business opportunities for entrepreneurs in the U.S. and around the world.
So here we are on the campus of the University of Tampa. Nick, you and Omar are running a multi-million-dollar nationwide junk hauling moving company. John, you've run a multi-billion-dollar global quick-serve restaurant company. But since we're here on a college campus, think back a few years. What did you envision you were going to be doing when you graduated college?
Well, Jeff, I was a radio TV major. So as you can tell, I never went into radio TV. And, I think we all dream about things that we might want to do. But as you can tell from my story, it really went in a different direction. But I like to look at it that I've already had 6 great chapters in my career.
Nick, what did you imagine you were going to do?
I thought I was going to be a professional basketball player. I had hoop dreams all the way up until college, when I realized I wasn't good enough to go much further. I played at a Division III school and realized I wasn't going to be able to make it any further than that. And I had, as I mentioned in the video, was always kind of brought up to work hard, get a good degree, get a job out of college, kind of move up the corporate ladder. So it was kind of a bit of a 180 when we said we were going to quit our jobs to start a junk hauling business. Parents, friends, teachers were like, "You're going to quit your jobs to do what? Haul junk? You're going to call it what? College hunks? Are you really going to throw away your college degree to start a trash business? Is that what you're telling us?" But I think it wasn't until we started working on this business that we realized it wasn't so much that we were passionate about the actual product of junk hauling, but it was really the creative process and the entrepreneurial energy behind envisioning what we could create with this sort of brand and providing that sort of service, something that I hadn't really been exposed to in high school or college. I never came to some of the a talk like this when I was in school, and I actually didn't even know what the word entrepreneur meant until we started the business. People were like, "Oh, so you're an entrepreneur?" And I'm like, "Oh, I guess that's what that word means." So certainly didn't envision this. I just knew I wanted to be successful, but I didn't know what that meant either, as I'm reflecting back to what I was thinking about in college.
The title of this program tonight is Driven to Succeed. And, when we were putting it together, I was actually thinking of calling it Why I Love Supply Chain and Logistics. But, it just doesn't have the same ring. And we laugh, but the reality is supply chain and logistics are really important, especially in your career, John.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. When I started, no one even knew what supply chain was. It really was transportation and distribution. And over the years, you've seen it evolve. And I'll be quite honest with you, I don't know many supply chain people that today have had the opportunity to be CEO of a major organization. But I really like to talk about Amazon. I mean, we all know Amazon. I'm sure everyone in the room is buying product off of Amazon. And they never really think about what it takes to get that package to the front door. how they procure it, warehouse it, move it. In reality, Amazon today is probably one of the largest supply chain companies. But at Dairy Queen, the thing that we found, we could not franchise restaurants without a solid supply chain. And that is critical in the international business. You have to build a supply chain before you can build restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think supply chain and logistics, really what it boils down to is systems and processes, and that's critical in any business. And I recall when we first started our business, we were doing all the work ourselves, as I mentioned, driving the truck, answering the phone, hauling the junk. We had the 800 number routed to our cell phones, and so people would call the 800 number on the back of the truck to complain about the erratic driving, and I'd be the one in the driver's seat answering the phone, apologizing to the caller, saying, we don't condone this type of driving in our company. We'll tell them, to be safer on the road when they get back to the office. So we probably fired ourselves 3 or 4 times that first summer because we were working in the business, not on the business, and we didn't have any logistics or systems or processes to think of. We were just kind of improvising as we went along, and that was when we started to hit a glass ceiling, and a mentor recommended to us a book called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber, and that book is all about creating systems and processes so that your business can scale. So when we read that book, it was like a light bulb went off, and we were like, oh, we need to document everything we do. How do we answer the phone? How do we drive the truck? How do we schedule the appointments? And obviously a company like Dairy Queen that's been around a lot longer is able to either buy or invest in much more sophisticated systems and processes, and we had to sort of build it as we went along, and it's continuing to evolve.
Nick, you're giving us way too much credit. There are so many times, even large organizations, I mean, you've got to improvise on the fly. And I know one day you and I were talking, and you said that you had to make your company look bigger to people. And I love that you guys were just getting started, but you wanted people to think it was a much larger organization. And you guys did a great job in accomplishing that.
Yeah, we had, when we first started it, we had marketing at, chhj.com, PR at chhj.com, sales at and that was me answering all those emails and writing all those emails. And I'd have different aliases. There was like Jason Smith was our marketing director, and, I'd put my Jason Smith hat on. But I think, you hear the slogan, fake it till you make it. To some degree, you have to think and act bigger. In business, they say dress for the job you want, not the job you have. And I think as an entrepreneur, you sometimes have to create and develop the business that you aspire to become, and then fill those shoes as you go.
So you really invented yourself. You and Nick invented yourself as entrepreneurs. But John, you became an entrepreneur midway through your career. You'd worked for some pretty big companies. How did you decide at that point that entrepreneurship was the right way to go?
Well, I think, Jeff, I was always an entrepreneur, but sometimes it was within a large organization. So I can remember several jobs that I had that I pretty much had to build out my job and my department. But I had worked for, Fortune 200 companies. I had worked with organizations that venture capital was involved with. And I came to the point in 2000 that I said, I really don't want to work for another organization. So we went out and we started Supply Solutions. We were very fortunate. We had a lot of great contacts in the quick serve and casual dining restaurant business, really everyone except McDonald's. And so we went out and we started a business from scratch, much like what Nick and Omar did. But I had another opportunity that came along with Dairy Queen. Being owned by Berkshire Hathaway, I knew that was a unique opportunity. To have the opportunity to work with Warren Buffett and get to know Berkshire Hathaway, I couldn't pass it up.
Well, everybody in the room would like to ask, and I'll do it for you, what's it like to work for Warren Buffett?
Everything that you hear Warren say about how he runs the company and how he works with the managers, it's 100% true. Warren allows each manager of each business to run their business. Now, if they're not doing a good job of it, they will get a lot of attention out of Omaha. In our case, we were very fortunate. We were able to grow Dairy Queen. It was very profitable. Warren loved the brand. So my interaction with Warren was fairly limited. But I will tell you, you couldn't have a bigger supporter of the brand.
I want to borrow from a slogan that we used to hear on network TV about the thrills of victory and the agonies of defeat. In your entrepreneurial experience, share with us some of the thrills of entrepreneurial victory and perhaps the agonies of defeat.
Some of the biggest setbacks, or probably the most difficult moments for us, was coming through the recession in kind of 08, 09. We had just started franchising. We had just moved down here to Tampa, and we thought that we were just going to set the world on fire in terms of our growth. And then, of course, the housing market crashed, and our business was very much tied to the housing market. People moving, people having disposable income to pay for the convenience of getting rid of stuff they no longer wanted, and all of that kind of stopped short. So our franchising slowed down, our consumer level sales slowed down. It felt like we were dragging an anchor through the sand. But I will say it actually made better business people out of us, because we had to become much more strategic, much more resourceful, much more sort of gritty and nimble to get through that difficult time. And if it had just been easy along the way, I think we would have gotten a little bit sort of false sense of security, because there's certainly nothing easy about being an entrepreneur, or about being or growing a business. So a lot of highs, a lot of lows. You hear about the entrepreneurial roller coaster, and you have to sort of ground yourself along the way and kind of throw your hands up sometimes and just enjoy the ups and downs.
Yeah, there's so many similarities. As Nick and I have gotten to know each other, entrepreneurs are winners, and they want to win. They don't want to come in second. And if they are successful, if they want to be successful, they have to be driven. They have to have a good business plan, but they have to drive for success. I know in my case, I never wanted to fail. I wanted my organization and my franchisees to win. And we were competing against some very big chains like McDonald's. So, you really need to have a good strategy, because you can't compete on the same playing field as some of the large competitors. So you have to find that niche. But like Nick, I took over as CEO of Dairy Queen right when the recession started. So I guess I didn't have too far to go down, but I had a long way to go up. But you can imagine, you're leading several thousand franchisees. This is their livelihood. They employ 40 to 60 people each in their stores. So you have hundreds of thousands of people that rely on you. And there's a fair amount of pressure involved in that. So, you have to be driven to success. But when you can show franchisees that they can be successful and can be profitable, some of the best moments are watching people open their first store, do well, open a second store, build a third store, and finally scale it, that they can put a management team in place that they're not working the restaurant. That's when a franchisee really begins to reap the rewards.
And there's nothing instant about business. No overnight success is going to actually happen overnight. The stories that you hear about the Snapchats or the Facebooks are essentially like winning the lottery to a degree. So you have to trust the process and recognize that business success is a function of time and discipline, and eventually, if you do the right things and execute on them consistently enough, the success will take care of itself. And you look at a brand like Dairy Queen that's iconic, started in the 1930s, and so it didn't happen overnight. And even our brand that's just now starting to become recognizable in some of the markets that we're in has taken 12 years for us to get there. And so I can think of times where I've tried to short circuit the success, and every time that I've tried to shortcut it, it's backfired, and it's been an expensive mistake. And so I think impatience can really set business owners or even business executives back, because they're trying to shortcut the success.
Let's talk about mentors. I mean, we just talked about Warren Buffett. I imagine you consider him a mentor. But let's talk about the people who have been mentors in your careers, what influence they had in the decision making, and how you actually establish rapport and find good mentors. John?
Well, my first mentor was my father. And my dad taught me that you treat everyone the same. And everybody's job is as important as anyone else. And I think that advice that my dad gave me has served me well over the years, Jeff. I mean, the thing that I enjoy about business is people. I mean, Nick and I are both in the people business. They just happen to be franchisees they happen to be fans, they happen to be customers. But all of us in business, we are going to deal with people. And I think if you treat people the way you want to be treated, they will respond. And they become some of your most loyal employees. When I look at Warren Buffett, the thing that Warren has provided to so many individuals is really the financial knowledge. And you know, Nick talked a lot about patience. If you know anything about Berkshire Hathaway, they like to buy brands, and Warren says he'll never sell. I mean, he has told me, you will receive many phone calls trying to buy Dairy Queen, just tell them no. So I think patience in business is very important. And I think that's one of the things that many of us, in working with Warren, we had a much deeper appreciation.
You know, so one of my mentors is here. John Sykes is you know, neighbor of mine that I had the fortunate opportunity to meet. He's actually the reason I'm up here chatting with you all this evening. And you know, some of the things that I've appreciated that John has shared with me has been, you know, entrepreneurs have a tendency to chase many different shiny objects and ideas, and if you can get stretched very thin in doing that, if you're going to diversify your business, do something that sort of fits within your platform or infrastructure that you've already got in place that's going to add to or integrate to what you're already doing. Because Omar and I, over the years, were chasing all these different ideas and coming up with ideas, and you know, it's the equivalent of trying to ride multiple horses at the same time. It just is impossible. I think the way you get mentors is you simply ask. You know, you share your vision and passion and ideas with people, and people will pick up on that energy and be interested in kind of sharing their wisdom or experiences with you.
You both use the franchising model to grow your businesses, and of all the locations, 7,000 around the world, over 100 in the United States, each of your companies actually owns 2 locations. One, why is that? Why do you own so few? And why is franchising the right model for your businesses, John?
Well, when I took over as CEO of Dairy Queen, we had company restaurants and franchise restaurants. And the thing that you find is when you're trying to run company restaurants, you have a different mindset. And I quickly found that if we were going to provide the best service to our franchisees, we needed to be focused on our franchise model. It also fit very well with the Berkshire model. If you look at Berkshire Hathaway, they're really a very large financial institution. And when you look at franchising, if you go out and you sell franchise and you service it well, it will pay you a royalty for many, many years. It also is a model where you're going out and you're finding entrepreneurs, but you're using their capital to build the business. And Nick's model is very similar. Now, as franchisor, you need to build the infrastructure. You need to provide the marketing support, financial support, operations support. And that is what many entrepreneurs elect to follow a franchise model. They don't want to go out and start Joe's ice cream shop. They want to go out and run an independent Dairy Queen, but know that they will get support from the franchisor. So that is the key. So what we did, Jeff, we sold our corporate restaurants, with the exception of 2, right by our headquarters in Minneapolis. And I wanted my team to go in and implement any changes in those 2 company restaurants, tweak it before they ever went out and asked a franchisee to spend a dime. If we couldn't make it work, why would we go ask a franchisee to spend their money? So it was real simple. We went down to 2 company restaurants, and we really put more of our focus on developing great franchisees.
The reason we franchise our company, I think there's 3 reasons that people will franchise a business. One, or why they will franchise a business: to expand more quickly. 1, they don't have access to significant capital. 2, they don't have access to human resources management staff to be able to support those multiple locations. And 3, they want to expand more quickly. And we really lacked all 3. We had the vision of being a national brand as quickly as we could become, to to open up each location would have cost us, $100,000 or more per location, and so that'd be tens of millions of dollars to get of investment to get to the level of locations that we are today. Where would we have come up with that capital, and how would we have managed those managers in those locations? Would have been very tricky. So it was a logical expansion strategy for us. And the key, if you're going to pursue that as an expansion strategy, is that you're going to provide the resources and the best practices that are going to help the franchise owners be successful. And then on the flip side, if you're evaluating a franchise opportunity to potentially invest in, you got to be passionate about working that business as well. Because just because the system and process is there doesn't mean that you just buy it, put balloons out for a grand opening and you're going to start making money. It's the equivalent of joining a gym and getting in shape. You still have to go to the gym and use the different pieces of equipment and follow what the personal trainer is telling you to do, and that's when you're going to see the fitness results. That's the equivalent of buying a franchise.
John, is it ever a challenge to find potential franchisees?
Well, it's never a challenge to find them. It's a challenge to find the right franchisees. There are a lot of people that would love to open a Dairy Queen or College Hunks hauling junk, but they may not be the right candidate. I mean, when you join a franchisor and an organization, there is a certain amount of structure. And some entrepreneurs struggle with that structure. They like it at the beginning, but as they get into the business, they don't want to follow the guidelines of the brand. In our case, we were running a brand, almost 7,000 units in 30 countries. You cannot have 3,500 franchisees doing it their way because you don't have the same fan experience. When someone walks into a Dairy Queen or any other chain restaurant, there is an expectation on food quality, atmosphere, service, friendliness. So there has to be some structure around that. There are entrepreneurs that really are not right to work in a franchise organization. I will say in the case of Dairy Queen, though, we have many second, third, even fourth generation operators. And the beauty of it is, you're looking at a 78-year-old brand that has had more growth in the last 10 years than it did in the previous 25 years. So that's really what made us feel good. People that are coming into Dairy Queen are actually helping to grow the brand.
Well, that gets to the next question. We marvel at all the technology companies that are coming up, the Apples, the Googles, Facebook, and so forth. And young entrepreneurs think of creating the next new app that will be an overnight success and become a billion-dollar business before it goes public. But many people aren't really technologically inclined. Do you think there's enough focus on non-technology type businesses out there for entrepreneurs?
Because of sort of the glamorization of that, there's maybe less of an inclination to get into a more traditional bricks and mortar type business, whether it's retail, food, in our case, service, but those opportunities are still there. And there's a way to leverage technology in those businesses, and that's something that we're doing. I know John is doing that as well. Certainly if you don't evolve and embrace technology, you can become obsolete or disrupted. You look at what's happened to the taxi cab industry, you look at what's happened to Blockbuster. So if you're not paying attention on what's going on in the technological world, you're going to become obsolete very quickly. And those are things that we've invested heavily in technology in our business to make sure that that doesn't happen to us. So I think regardless of whatever business you're in, there needs to or has to be a technological component to it, but there doesn't have to be just a sole focus on, hey, I'm going to get into a tech business. You can get into any sort of business and apply technology to it to move it forward.
Yeah, I agree with what Nick just said. I mean, technology is part of every business today, and it's really changing the way we do business. But the advice that I've always given people is go find something that you will enjoy. And if you do that for your career, it will never be work. But when I look at technology, most people today take a Dairy Queen or a McDonald's or a Wendy's. Delivery is what's coming in the US. A year ago, November, we started delivery in China. and it jumped to 18% of total store sales within 6 months. Already in the United States, you can order food, have it delivered. You are going to see that grow. And companies like Amazon, they're changing the expectation. I mean, you can get online, order something, and have it delivered to your home later in the day. So the paradigm about service is really changing, and I think that will be true in almost any industry.
Let's talk about corporate culture. Both of your companies have very, very distinct corporate culture. Yours goes back 78 years, but has evolved. Yours is a dozen years old. How do you define, how do you create the right corporate culture?
Well, I think part of it begins with the leadership. The tone really gets set from the top. And it doesn't matter what business that you're in. If you tell people this is how we want to run the organization, then your actions need to follow your words. And I really believe it's important to go recruit the very best people possible. I mean, I think if you go hire people that are better than you, and they have skill sets that are different than you, and you can blend that and put together the right team, your organization will have far more success than if you hire people like yourself. But it's also about treating people right. I still believe that people want to work for an organization that they feel the organization cares for them. But I think, you build a culture over time. Yes, we had great heritage, but I think whoever is leading the organization has a big impact on that culture.
Yeah, I mean, I think culture is by intent and it's by design. If your brand is, you think of your brand as sort of the exterior frame, or a picture frame, if you will, the culture is what's like actually in that frame. And so the way we've developed our culture as an organization is we defined our company purpose, and we defined our company core values. We borrowed this from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. And he talks about the difference between a good company and a great company is good companies have core values, great companies actually live them, and they use them as a litmus test for who we hire, who we fire, who we reward and recognize, who we let go. And the other slogan I've heard is it's not what's on the walls, it's what's in the halls, meaning it's not just the words on the walls that are your core values, but it's are you, especially as the leader, living and abiding by those core values. So if somebody's a brilliant jerk and he's putting up big sales numbers, but he's a negative person within the organization, doesn't fit with one or align with your core values, you've got to let them go because you've got to get sort of the splinters out of your culture before they turn into infection. So we've come up with 4 core values for our organization. We call them building leaders, always branding, listen, fulfill, delight, fun, enthusiastic team environment. Those are our 4 core values. We wanted just 4 so that even the frontline guys on the trucks could remember them, even the people answering the phones could know them and recite them. And we try to hammer them every single day. We do daily stand-up huddles, and we'll review one of those core values every day and have people tell core value stories. We give awards at our annual franchise convention for each of those core values. So by doing that, like John said, it doesn't happen overnight, but by having intention to reinforce those elements, it's what's allowed the culture to take on a life of its own, where it doesn't have to be me shouting these things. It's shared by all, not just with all.
But I will tell you, the most important value in business today, I believe, is integrity. And I see a lot of organizations, they lose their way because they don't look at the integrity of the organization and what they're doing. And I think, even in our world, in politics, integrity is just so important. It's about doing the right things. Sometimes there are things that you could do to make more profit, but it's not the right thing. And I think that's one of the things our students need to keep in mind. Their personal integrity and the integrity of any organization that they go to work for, that ought to be one of the things that they look for when they're looking for a job.
Hunks also stands for something that represents your culture. Am I right?
It is, yeah. That's actually our brand promise. We came up with an acronym, actually not when we first started the business, but we say that Hunks stands for honest, uniformed, nice, knowledgeable service. So we redefine the term Hunks. It's more than just physical attributes. It's also service aptitude. It's honesty. It's being in uniform. It's being friendly. It's being knowledgeable about the product or service that we're providing. And so if the guys that are going out on the trucks every day recognize that they have to represent all of those characteristics, not just being a hunk in the traditional definition. And so by that definition, I like to say I still qualify. So.
I thought you'd all like to know that. John, I love the notion that what you provide is fan food, not fast food. I mean, that's a game-changing concept. And I think in a lot of ways, College Hunks is the same thing. I mean, you're looking for recurring revenue, repeat business, and it's that relationship that you have with your customers,
yeah, I mean,
your fans.
So in the College Hunks business, it's a transactional business. If somebody moves, the move is complete. Somebody has their junk hauled away, they don't need it again for another year or two until that stuff's accumulated back up. So we rely heavily on what I call the 3 R's: repeat business, referral business, and reputation, which is the online reputation nowadays, which is so critical. And it is about that client experience. And there's another book that influenced me called The Purple Cow by Seth Godin. And he says if you're going to stand out in business, you have to be remarkable, be different. If you're driving down a country road and you see a field of brown cows, you've seen that before, you keep driving. If there's a purple cow standing over there, you're going to pull over, take pictures of it, tweet about it, put it on social media, tell your friends and neighbors. So the purple cow has to stand out not just in the brand, but also in the actual experience of the product or service. And that's what we try to, again, drill home. It starts at training with our franchise owners, has to drill down to the frontline team members as well. And you're absolutely right. Right now, on the College Hunks business that we have, 30% of our business is repeat referral business. So for every job that we do, it's going to turn into at least another third of a job thereafter. So that's kind of our recurring revenue, is relying on those 3 R's.
So, when we thought about fans, and it came up earlier tonight, the female head of household is the decision maker for our business and Nick's business. And a lot of people don't understand that. The male in the household may have influence, but it's the female running that household that tends to make the decision.
In my household, too. How do you identify an entrepreneurial idea as being worth pursuing?
My advice to somebody that has any idea is to, and there's very inexpensive or free ways to essentially test out those ideas, put it into some sort of pilot test. If it's a product or service, try to sell it, create it, sell it, do some surveys to see if there's interest in it, and the market will tell you if there's an opportunity there. I mean, in our case, we had a catchy name in a beat-up cargo van. Somebody might not think that's a very entrepreneurial idea worth pursuing, but we put flyers in the mailbox and the phone started ringing, and we realized, okay, there's a need for the service. People have a fun, playful reaction to the name. Maybe this is an opportunity, and that spurred a chain of events that led to the business plan being written, that led to the business being pursued full time. So I think nowadays there's so many ways to just kind of market test or pilot test an idea to see if there's some traction or opportunity there to kind of pursue it further.
Jeff, the old saying, an idea without a plan is a dream. And I think a lot of people have dreams about what they would like to do, but as Nick alluded to it, it really is about putting together a business plan. And I think you've got to go out and test it. And I think you need to go out and talk to people in the industry that you're considering entering. Or if it's a brand new segment that you think there's an opportunity, you need to seek counsel from people that have been in business. You also need to be prepared financially.
How does College Hunks use the web and cell phones in growing its business?
Well, a lot. I'll say over 50% of our business comes off the internet. AdWords on Google, pay-per-click social media, SEO, search engine listings. Now with Yelp and sites like Thumbtack and Nextdoor and Angie's List are platforms, Home Advisor are platforms that services like ours can generate leads. So wherever the consumer is looking for the service, when we first started, the yellow pages, believe it or not, still existed. Like, people still looked in the yellow pages, and we actually had ads in them for like a year or two before they were completely obsolete, and it was all Google. Now social media and Facebook actually didn't exist. I think it had just started the year we started our business. Facebook has some very hyper-targeted ad capabilities where you can target people in specific zip codes and specific demographics, age, income levels, and so forth. So we're leveraging all of that, and we've got to do it strategically and very nimbly, because that's changing ever so quickly. And then mobile, we've had to redo our website a few times. We're actually going through that again to make it more mobile effective at converting leads, because the mobile usage of our websites, 3 years ago, our mobile web traffic might have been 20%. Now it's over 60%. The people that are going to our website, not at a desktop, but actually on their mobile phone. So being able to have that information on a smaller screen as opposed to what used to be a much larger screen is super critical. And so being able to continue to evolve and execute on that is part of the race and part of the game.
Yeah, we were fortunate. We were spending hundreds of millions of dollars. The bulk of it, of course, would be on television. But when you look at the younger population, they're not watching traditional TV today. If they're watching anything, they're probably taping it. They're skipping through commercials. Facebook, Twitter are very key to our business. I will tell you this, the mobile apps drive loyalty. And the company that I feel has probably done the best job in our space is Starbucks. And Starbucks will market directly to you based on what you buy at their store or what they're trying to sell you. And that is where I see it evolving with social media, that it will be more targeted marketing in the future.
Well, gentlemen, I would like to thank you so much for being our guests here today.
Sure. Thanks, man. Good job.
Thanks again to Nick Friedman, John Gainor, and the University of Tampa Sykes College of Business. If you'd like to see this program again or any of the CEO profiles in our Suncoast Business Forum archive, you can find them on the web at wedu.org/SBF. Thanks for joining us for the Suncoast Business Forum.
Kevin. Trusted financial advice for life. You can learn more at RaymondJames.com.